Hey, what's up guys, Zukon here. This is my updated 7.1 Ret Paladin PvP guide. If you haven't watched my first PvP guide, then I recommend giving that a watch as well as this guide. You can either watch it after or before this video. I'll leave a link here somewhere. But basically, in my first guide, I pretty much just go over things in a little bit more detail, like the abilities and the rotations and some of the defensive tactics. I'll go over some of those things again in this guide, but this guide's going to be a little bit shorter since I've already covered most of the main things in my first guide. But I'm pretty much going to go over what's changed, like the talents for example, and how that's affected the Ret Paladin in 7.1. So I'll pretty much cover all the basics in this video. But yet again, as I said, if you want a little bit more in-depth and a bit more knowledge, then I do recommend giving my first guide a watch as well. But anyway guys, I'm just going to get straight into the 7.1 guide. I hope it helps you out and I hope you enjoy, so yeah. I'll get straight into it first by talking about the talents. So with the talents and the honor talents, a few things have changed since the last patch, so I'm just going to go over them now. At level 15 is exactly the same, we're still picking Final Verdict, that extra 20% damage on Templar's Verdict, and that 10% damage on Divine Storm. That constant extra boost of damage, it's just really good and consistent, and it's really reliable source of damage for us as Ret Paladins. Executed Sentence does do quite a lot of burst damage, but it's kind of unreliable. It costs 3 holy power, it can get dispelled, so it's a little bit more awkward to use. So Final Verdict still is the best choice here, so I recommend picking this talent definitely. At level 30, we have the Fires of Justice, Zeal and Greater Judgment. In the last patch, I preferred the Fires of Justice, but over the course of time, I've kind of realised that Zeal is probably the better choice now, especially for arenas and battlegrounds. So Zeal does a lot of single target damage and a lot of AoE damage. The Fires of Justice is just for single target, but since there's more than one target in arena pretty much every game, Zeal is going to be the stronger choice since you get a little bit more pressure with the extra AoE damage. And it's still pretty good for single target as well, so definitely for 3v3 I'd pretty much pick Zeal 100% of the time, and definitely in battlegrounds as well, since it's a good balance between single target and AoE. Greater Judgment's more of an all-out AoE talent, but for battlegrounds I would definitely pick Zeal as well. The Fires of Justice, maybe sometimes you can pick it in a 2v2 comp, it depends what you're up against, but pretty much 100% of the time I'm picking Zeal now. So at level 45, we have the Fist of Justice, Repentance and Blinding Light. Again, the only really viable one for PvP here is the Fist of Justice. It reduces the cooldown of your 1 minute Hammer of Justice every time you spend Holy Power. So if you combine it with things like Divine Purpose, Crusade, then it's going to reduce the cooldown of your stun even further, maybe even less than 30 seconds. So it's really strong to get that good 6-second stun up more often. So level 45, the Fist of Justice is definitely the best choice. So at level 60, we have the same talents here again, but one of them got redesigned, Blade of Wrath. I'll talk about that in a second. At level 60, Virtue's Blade still does a lot of damage, it still crits pretty hard, but overall the damage is going to be better with Blade of Wrath, since every time you auto-attack, you have the chance to reset the cooldown of your Blade of Justice. So if you're lucky, you can use Blade of Justice, auto-attack, and get another proc straight away. So you can get like 4 holy power in a really short amount of time, which is going to increase your damage, because you're generating more holy power, therefore getting more Templar's Verdicts and more Justice Vengeances. So Blade of Wrath is looking really strong at the moment. It adds a lot of extra damage to the Ret Paladin, and I really do like the redesign. It also works really well with the Law and Order talent, since if your Blade of Justice is proccing more often, then you're going to apply that slow more often, which is good for Ret Paladins since they don't have a lot of mobility or slows, so definitely the best choice here. Divine Hammer is just more of a massive AoE thing. I don't really pick it. Maybe you can have some fun with it in Battlegrounds, but pretty much in Battlegrounds as well, I pick the Blade of Wrath pretty much 100% of the time, and in arenas too. Level 75, Justice Vengeance is again just the clear winner here again. Eye for an Eye can be definitely be used in some situations, maybe if you're dueling against a strong melee class like a rogue or something, or maybe you're against double melee in arena, sometimes you can pick it, but pretty much like 99% of the time I do pick Justice Vengeance, since it does a massive amount of damage and a massive amount of healing. It heals for the exact amount that you're dealing damage, and if you stun the target, this is very important, if you stun the target, it does 100% extra damage, and that includes your arena partner stuns. So if your druid stuns them, if your warrior stuns them, anyone in your team uses a stun, it also adds that 100% extra damage. You can do a lot of burst damage and a lot of healing with it, and I'll show you how that works in a second. I do, in my first guide, explain a lot of tricks and tips with Justica's Vengeance. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, then I suggest watching my first guide. But it is really strong what you can do with Justica's Vengeance. Word of Glory isn't that good. I hope it does get redesigned somehow, because pretty much no one's picking it. It's not very strong, it's just a bit awkward at the moment. At level 90 we have Divine Intervention, Cavalier, and Seal of Light. I'd say the two viable ones here are Divine Intervention and Cavalier. I mostly do pick Divine Intervention, since the main strong point about it is that it reduces your cooldown of your bubble by half. So if your enemy does force your bubble, you do have that shorter cooldown, so you increase your survivability in arena. And it also heals you for a little bit once you get to 0 HP. And a really good attribute as well is that you don't have to worry about actually bubbling. It'll automatically bubble you when you get to 0 HP, which is really good, so you don't have to worry about the global cooldown when you're trying to use it. But be careful, if you do get kicked, if you get wholly locked, it won't auto bubble, so be careful not to cast when you're at low HP, because you can get kicked and the auto bubble will not work. But Cavalier, I pick this if you're against a class or a comp that does kite you around a lot. So if you're against like a mage and a Windwalker monk or a Mistweaver monk, for example, then Cavalier might be a good choice, since you know you need to catch up to them. But I rarely pick it. I usually do pick Divine Intervention, but if I know, if I'm with like another melee class, for example, and we're just not hitting the target, then I would pick Cavalier. Level 100, we have Divine Purpose, Crusade, and Holy Wrath. Holy Wrath was really good in the last patch, but it has been nerfed, and it isn't worth it anymore. That, you know, it only does 35% now, and it just doesn't feel as effective as it used to be, so it's not very good anymore. So the two winners here again are Divine Purpose and Crusade. Divine Purpose is a talent that I do pick most of the time, since it can add a lot of burst damage with Justica's Vengeance in a stun. I'll talk about that in a bit. But basically, you have a chance to make one of your Holy Power spending abilities free, so you can spam maybe like a Justica's Vengeance like twice or maybe 3 times in a row, and that will cause you to do a lot of burst damage if you're really lucky, and it can be really, really strong. And also offers a lot of healing if you use your procs on Justica's Vengeance as well. So Divine Purpose does have a lot of burst damage. Crusade is also really strong now. I think in the last patch I called it useless, but now that I've looked into it in more depth, I do think Crusade is actually really strong. Mainly in battlegrounds or against double melee classes in arenas. Crusade, you need to like apply the stacks, and you need to be always hitting something. So if you're against like a mage that kites you a lot in arenas, then Crusade is not going to be very good, since you're going to struggle to apply those stacks. Also in arena it's kind of hard to get the stacks up because of CC and all those awkward things, but if you know that you can constantly stick to your target, then Crusade's going to be really strong, since you can always get those stacks up. That's why I've started to use it in battlegrounds. You've seen some of my videos, since in battlegrounds you're always hitting someone, you're always next to someone that you can hit, so you can get the stacks up quite nicely, and it does cause you to do a lot of damage. Crusade probably out of these three makes you do the most damage, but it is the hardest to get up and set up as well. So Crusade, I do like picking that for battlegrounds, and maybe sometimes in arena if I know I can always stick to the target. So that's pretty much it about the talents. Now I'm going to talk about the honor talents. So Relentless, I don't pick that much anymore. It's either between Adaption and Gladiator's Medallion. You always switch these two out depending on what comp you're against. If you're against a comp like the Walking Dead with a Windwalker Monk and a Death Knight that do a lot of burst damage and maybe can kill you or your healer in 1 CC ability, then I definitely would pick Gladiator's Medallion, since it's the safest choice to get out of CC so you can save your partner or yourself. Adaption I'd use against something like a Rogue Mage Druid, where you know they're constantly CCing you all game, so that extra reduction does help you a lot with Adaption. So yeah, it's pretty much, you got to figure out what comp you're against and then adapt to what your pick is. In this row of talents, I think all three are pretty good. Sparring is good when you're against 2 melee classes. It reduces the damage, so you pick this if you're against like a rogue and a feral druid, or for example, or a rogue and a warrior, just 2 melee classes. Reinforced armor, I do like the extra 10% health. I do think it's pretty good. Definitely pick this in battlegrounds and in arenas. Hardness can also be really good, because If you're above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. So when you're with a healer in arena, a lot of the time you are above that threshold, so you do take less damage. But I do personally prefer the extra 10% health. But if you're against classes that do like percent damage with abilities, then you know hardiness is going to be the best choice. And this next row of talents, pretty much 99% of the time, maybe not 99, but 90% of the time, I pick Jurisdiction, since the extra 10 yards on your quite short range hammer does help you out a lot. It makes you less predictable when you're trying to stun, and it also just makes it faster to get off, because most of the time you're stunning the healer, and if you just run towards them with your short range, then they're going to go behind a pillar because it's quite predictable. So if you pick Jurisdiction, it's going to make you less predictable and easier to apply your stun, which is really, really important, especially in 3v3 arenas. Now, Law and Order can be pretty good, since Ret Paladins don't have much movement ability or many slows, so as I said earlier, with Blade of Wrath, Law and Order can be really good to constantly apply a slow to a target with Blade of Justice, sorry. So if you're finding it hard to stick to a target, then I would definitely pick Law and Order, especially if your arena partner doesn't have a slow. But if your arena partner does have a slow, then I would definitely pick Jurisdiction 100% of the time. And this next row is also quite a versatile choice. Luminescence is the most common one, especially in Battlegrounds, since you can give a lot of team healing when you get healed. It basically heals everyone around you for 30% of the healing that you're receiving, so it can add a lot of team healing. And it can be pretty good in arenas when you're going around pillars, you know, doing resets or just staying next to your allies, you know, keeping the team up pretty good with that extra 30%. Holy Ritual is pretty much used when you're not with a healer or when you're doing duels, since every time you use a blessing, so that's, you know, Blessing of Freedom, Blessing of Protection, you know, all the blessings that the Ret Paladin has, every time you apply them to your self or your allies, then it gives them a little heal, which can be pretty useful. Purify, you pick this 100% of the time when you're against classes with poisons and diseases, so definitely would pick it against an Assassination Rogue and maybe a Death Knight as well, but I would definitely pick this talent against Assassination Rogues, since this is a talent that counters them, since it removes their poisons, which is one of their most primary source of damage. And this next row of talents as well, we have Vengeance Aura and Blessing of Sanctuary. These are pretty much the viable ones here. Seraphim's Blessings, not really that good. Vengeance Aura is what you pick all the time in Battlegrounds, since you can get up to 40% extra damage, depending on how often your allies are getting crowd controlled, but it gives you a little buff when your enemies get CC'd, you know, feared, stunned, or whatever. But Blessing of Sanctuary is what you pick 100% of the time in arena, no matter what. You definitely need this talent, and I know a lot of you might not be able to pick it because you're not doing the macros properly, you know, but as I really need to get this point across, like, you really need to make the macro for this ability and set up, you know, adequate, you know, keybinds, you know, to heal your, you know, to give this blessing to your arena partners, since it's very important, since it gets them out of stun, silences, fears, and horrors. So this can pretty much cancel out one of their CC abilities. So say if a warrior is stunning you every 30 seconds, Blessing of Sanctuary is on a 25-second cooldown, so you pretty much take that warrior stun out of the game, so you can think of it like that. It can get your allies out of really dire situations where maybe they end up killing them, so you definitely need to macro this ability. I'll leave the macro down in the description. I go over all my macros in my first guide, so I'll leave the link to my first guide as well, but I might go over this just at the end as well to make sure you get this macro for this ability, because it's really important that you do this. It makes a difference between a good Ret Paladin and a great Ret Paladin, so if you want to be a really good Ret Paladin, then I do really need to get your macro sorted out for this talent, because it does get your allies out of crowd control, which is one of the most deadly things in arenas, so it's really important. And for the final tier, pretty much 100% of the time you go for Lawbringer. It pretty much allows you to get the debuff from Judgment up 100% of the time, and that makes you do a little bit more damage with your mastery. Hammer of Reckoning can be quite fun with a burst, but it's not as consistent as Lawbringer, so Lawbringer is definitely the choice that you want to pick here. So that's pretty much it about the talents and honor talents, guys. If you have any questions, just let me know down in the comments. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the burst next. So I'm just going to go over the burst real quick. You do the most optimal amount of burst damage if you're at 5 holy power before you start bursting, and that's because you're going to get 2 Jessica's Vengeances off for sure when the target is stunned. But say if you need to switch to a target and you have 0 holy power, and if you stun the target and just use Wake of Ashes off the bat, then that is okay. But you do want to try and aim to get 5 holy power before you start bursting. In that way, you're definitely going to get 2 Jessica's Vengeance off inside the stun. But as I said, yeah, again, if you really need to kill someone really quickly, or you're switching to a target that you need to do a lot of burst damage on with your partner, then just using Wake of Ashes with a stun off the bat is okay. But I'll show you how the burst works now with the Holy Power build-up, so I was going to show you that on my friend. So I'm just going to go over the burst real quick against my friend here. I'm just going to get to the 5 Holy Power to show the maximum amount of damage, but as I said, if you do need to get a lot of damage off in a short amount of time and you don't have time to get to 5 Holy Power, then it is okay just to use Wake of Ashes straight away to get a Jessica's Vengeance. But it is more optimal if you do get to 5 Holy Power before you start bursting. So I'm going to activate a burst, make sure Judgment's applied, stun the target, Jessica's Vengeance, Wake of Ashes into another Jessica's Vengeance, and there we go, he's dead. Sometimes that can be enough to kill a target. Maybe in arena you might need a few more than that, maybe 1 more. So like I said before, with Divine Purpose can give you another proc of Jessica's Vengeance, and you'll be able to get another proc of Jessica's Vengeance inside the stun. You know, that would definitely kill a target, and if you're lucky you might be able to get another, and that would definitely kill a target. So if you're bursting with something like a Death Knight, you can do a lot of damage, and you know, it's really good burst. So yeah, that's pretty much it about the burst, guys. So yeah guys, that's it for this guide. If you'd like to know more about macros and other tips and tricks, then I'll leave my first guide down in the description. In that video there's annotations that you can click on to get you to the desired part of the video that you want to see. I've got a video on key bindings, I'll leave that down in the description. I've got a video on the artifact path, I'll also leave that down in the description. I haven't done an add-on video yet. I'm planning to do an add-on video if you guys want to see that, so let me know down in the comments if you want me to do an add-on video for you guys. If you guys also want me to make a video specifically on how to, you know, use the Ret Paladin against other classes or other comps in arena, or maybe classes in a duel, just let me know down in the comments and I might make a video on it. So yeah guys, I've also got a PvP movie coming up soon. It might take quite a long time to make it, but I really want to work on it hard, and I'm really excited to show it to you guys. Yeah, and I've got a 3v3 video coming up soon as well, of me with the Mistweaver Monk and a Death Knight. So yeah guys, I got loads of PvP things coming up soon, so if you don't want to miss it, just make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Hopefully this video helped you out and you enjoyed it. So yeah guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.